Hello, welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. This is the final word. Republic of Ireland 1, Serbia 1. I am joined by Andy McNulty, as a former Bows goalkeeper, and Lar Mahony, who is the author of the book Let the Players Play, and that's actually forwarded by Stephen Kenny as well. But two men with a big background in Irish football. So we just said we'd get a couple of people on and maybe mix it up a little bit, because people have been on to us about, you aren't getting people on talking about Kenny should be this and Kenny should be that. So I just said I'd get the two lads on and we'd have a debate, but we're also going to discuss the Serbia game in length first, and then we'll kind of come into that. So Andy, Lar, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, no problem at all. Listen, I think we'll start it off, Andy. I'll go through the lineup and I'll just kind of get your thoughts. What were your thoughts initially when you saw the lineup coming out? So I have here Bazunu, Egan, Duffy, Omo Bamadelli, Matt Doherty, James McLean, Josh Cullen, Jeff Hendrick coming back in, Jamie McGrath coming back in, and then Alan Brown and Adam Eade. It seemed to be kind of a 4-5-1 type of formation. But what were your thoughts? Were any of those players there surprising for you, or how were you feeling?
Not many surprises, to be honest with you, Paul. I think with obviously a lot of with it being the third game in a week, I think it was probably the strongest enough team that we could have had out on the pitch on Tuesday night. So not many surprises for me, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, look, I think we probably went out as strong as we could have against a very strong Serbia team.
Lara, what were your thoughts?
I just thought maybe no surprises really. Maybe just Alan Brown. I heard Stephen talking beforehand, and he actually, I'm nearly sure that he said it was a 3-4-3 formation. So in terms of the players that came out, I don't think you would have been surprised, but it didn't look like, it never really looked like a 3-4-3 anyway. For a lot of the time, Adam Eade looked like he was playing up front on his own.
Yeah, that's kind of how a lot of people were calling it a 4-5-1, with kind of Alan Brown almost being that one behind. It kind of reminded me of that formation that Everton used to play under David Moyes, where Tim Cahill was the one that was in behind the striker the whole time, and he was the one, and then everybody would kind of push up that way. But
it would seem on paper that Alan Brown, that was his job, but I don't think it ever really panned out that way,
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say 4-5-1 actually, because it was definitely a back three, so it got a 5-3-1-1 type thing, I suppose you would say. So, just going into it, I mean, early on we were getting pressed right up the pitch, early doors. I mean, we were almost inviting pressure at times, and that kind of showed in the fourth minute. Duffy loses control of the ball, playing around at the back. We were on with Bamadelli, gives him a ball, and he just kind of takes his eye off at Duffy slightly, and then Vlahovic nearly gets in, but Bazunu saves it. So, like, early on, were you panicking, Andy, when this was kind of happening, or are you kind of getting used to us now playing like this?
Yeah, I suppose like Stephen has obviously brought in his philosophy of getting it out back from the keeper and playing out and sort of playing through the lines as best as he can. The problem you have is if you meet a team with high energy and a high press, and if you don't execute, the problem is you invite pressure onto yourself. So I think we're still there. The lads are still sort of learning that role. They're not fully executing it the way we entirely like it to be, but at the same time they're still trying it. They continue to try it throughout the game, but as you said, the first sort of 15-20 minutes were a bit shaky in terms of inviting that high press and inviting, like, the Serbs are very good. They were a very attacking side on the night. So if you're not spot on and if you don't execute it to its fullest, you could be in trouble, and you're inviting pressure onto the back three and the goalkeeper straight from the off.
Yeah. Now, what were your thoughts? Because obviously you do coaching as well, and I know, Andy, you're a coach as well at Tech, so I'm just kind of eager to get your thoughts as coaches.
I think in terms of playing from the back, Paul, there's no one will come and say that we shouldn't play out from the back, but I think the players have got to take some responsibility here, because there are times, and we seem to be following this pattern in all the games, that when we start off, the players look very, very rocky. They look very, very shaky, and it always looks at the start of the games as if we're going to give something away, and we nearly always do give something away. Now, we were nearly punished, obviously, in the Portugal game for that. And again, we were nearly punished for doing that again. There's absolutely nothing, in terms of the idea of playing for the back. It's the execution of it that just has to be right. The players have got to learn their lessons. They've got to make sure that they're doing it at the right time in the right place. There have been times where the players have just made bad choices. They want to play up the back, and they've just been making bad choices. They've played into players that, aren't. If you're going to bounce the ball into one of the midfield players, that midfield player, he's got to be certain of getting the ball. It's got to be in a situation where he's 100% certain and he's 100% comfortable. That hasn't happened. We've made mistakes in that regard. And we've also made mistakes playing really, really tight, really short passes in our own penalty area, which any team that you're playing against, once they see that happening, they're going to try and go after you then. You're going to avoid a little bit of trouble in that regard. But like I said, we seem to be following a pattern that as the games go on, we get better at it. And I think that's what happened in the last game as well. After a while, we were doing it. There were times where we came out with the ball really, really well.
Yeah, well, I think I have them. My notes there, like the first 10 minutes, it was tight. We were inviting pressure, but we did okay. Our only chance of note was a Aviva header that was offside, but it was a good bit of play by Dart. I think it came to Alan Brown. He whips it with his left foot, and he does offside. And that was our only kind of real note in getting us up the pitch then at that point. And then the first 15 minutes, Goodale has 2 shots from distance. No real danger because Bazunu saves them comfortably enough. But just again putting ourselves under pressure. Have there McGrath putting Josh Cullen under pressure. We lose the ball there. The ball comes out to Goodale, and now luckily enough he hits it straight at Bazunu and he makes a comfortable save. Andy, I know you've played in goals and stuff like that, but from a goalkeeping point of view, how impressed have you been in terms of his composure? Gavin Bazunu, because he was coming out at that point, even the first 15 minutes he'd made those saves, but I remember he came from a corner as well early on when we were under the cosh a bit, and he came out and claimed or punched it away, and he just seems to take a lot of pressure off that defence, albeit sometimes he puts pressure on with the passing around the back and stuff like that. But as a goalkeeper yourself, how impressed have you been with him?
Listen, he's really hit the ground running, and fair play to him, 19 years of age. But at the same time, as Lar just mentioned there, there's a time and a place. And look, obviously, Stephen is encouraging them to play that way, nearly all the time and every time, But look, he'll learn from that as well. There were 1 or 2 opportunities later in the game where, in fairness to him, he did put his boot through it. So, as Lars said, it's taken maybe 15, 20 minutes for us to realise that we're putting ourselves under the cosh a small bit. But in terms of Bazunu, he's come into the squad. I think Stephen, said like he was probably a little bit behind Kelleher in terms of choice. But with injury or unavailability for Kelleher at the time, he's taken that jersey and he's really, really like. I wouldn't substitute him now. I think he deserves a run of the games. I think he'll only go from strength to strength now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Now, I suppose I'll get your opinion on him as well, maybe later on, because we're going to be going through the game, and obviously he makes more and more saves as the game goes on. So I'll get your opinion a little bit later on him. But so another chance after that was the Hendrick half volley, where again McLean on the left hand side, and he thought his crossing was much better. I've been critical of him. I felt as though at times he does struggle to beat the first man in terms of his crossing. Other people argue that point, but I thought his crossing was really good in the Serbia game, and he gets the ball in. The ball falls at the edge of the box to Hendrick. It's a bit of a nothing chance. I think it looks a bit closer than it is, but I don't think the goalkeeper was ever in any danger. Not long after that then, good Serbia play down the right hand side. The ball comes into the box. Omobama Deli clears it. And it was good. It was good defended by him because he reads the danger, gets in, sniffs it out, kicks it out for a corner, and that's where they get their goal. A brilliant ball in by Tadic, and Milenkovic-Savic scores a header. A lot of people blaming Bazunu on the goal. I don't think it's anything to do with him. I think the pace is just that quick and it comes at him so fast. It's like a bullet almost at him, and it goes in. Milenkovic-Savic is very good in the air, and he just steals that yard in the box. If we scored that goal, we'd be delighted with it at that point. Did you feel we were unlucky to concede, or did you think it was coming?
Well, they looked very, very strong. They were very, very clever around the edge of the box, But having said that, though, Paul, you're always going going to be annoyed. You're always going to be pointing fingers when you give goals away in set plays like that. Like, you know, a lot of people were talking about Jeff Hendrick at the front, who was in the hole, whose job it would have been to attack that ball. But I think it was Jamie McGrath that he lost as well, that he got across both of them. I think both of those players.
Looking on the replay, it looked like either Matt Doherty or Alan Brown to me. I couldn't make out who it was. I couldn't make it out. Yeah,
I couldn't make it out. I thought it was actually Jamie McGrath. But whoever it was, let him get across him. Wasn't marking him well enough, and Jeff Hendrick didn't attack the ball well enough that came into the front post. It was a great finish. I don't think Bazunu could have been at fault in any way. Like you said yourself, the pace on the cross gave him the pace in the header, and the range and the pace and the distance it came from, I don't think the keeper would have had a chance at all.
I had a good angle at it actually at the match, and it was just sheer pace that took it past.
Yeah.
Andy, have you went to add just on the goal there?
No, as we mentioned there, it's just unfortunately with teams when they have a bit of quality like that, you get punished, and it is disappointing to concede from a set piece. I'm sure Stephen is good that is the case. I'm sure they've worked on it. They have gradually got better in defensive set pieces, but it's very disappointing. No matter how the goal goes in, to concede from a set piece, it's just always something that, you know, you can pick pieces apart of it every goal, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, people are saying, oh, you shouldn't be conceded from set pieces and stuff like that. Look, you're going to concede goals. Like, it doesn't matter how they go in, whether it's a play out in open play, whether it's set pieces. In my opinion, I don't see why it matters whether it was a set piece goal we conceded. We still conceded at that point, and anyway, it was maybe I think at that point we were starting to get into the game, and I think it was maybe a little bit against the run of play, although they were kind of dominating. I might sound like I'm contradicting myself there, but I felt as though, as you said, as the game grew on, we were starting to kind of get into the game that little bit more, and then they got the goal, which was unfortunate. And then I have after that, in the 28th minute, the 24th minute, we had a good pressing by Ireland. Alan Brown actually wins the ball high up. It goes to Jamie McGrath. He has a lovely little bit of skill. Takes it by Jurgic, I think it was. And he goes to take the shot with his left foot and gets hacked down. Intelligent foul by the Serb. But Jeff Hendrick then with the free kick, which was almost like a pass back, unfortunately. And it was just a shot on target, I think. And I think that was our only attempt on target at that point for the first half. Then having the 28th minute, Milenkovic misses the target after a good play on the left. I think it's Milenkovic, the defender. Yeah, he gets the ball in the box and he just smashes it wide. He probably should hit the target there. There's a bit of a let off for us. 29th minute then, a good ball into by McLean into a good area. Ada tries to get on the end of it, but then gets booked for dangerous play. As I say, we're kind of building up the pitch at this point. Then again, 36 minutes, another good ball by McLean, causing problems, getting much better, crossing much better. I had in this game. And then 38 minute, there's a long ball into our half, and on the edge of the box, Vlahovic chests it down. It goes to Mitrovic, and again Bazunu pulls off a really good save. 41st minute, Tadic gets the ball over the top into the box in space. He's closed down well by Josh Cullen. He forces him back. The ball's passed out to Tosic, who again hits it from distance. Bazunu makes a comfortable save. And then I have 45th minute, unlucky to be 1-0 down. Played well at times, no end product though. Hendrick, Doherty and McLean were doing well in their own right. I think McLean was doing better offensively than defensively, in my opinion, at the game. Bazunu was fantastic. Brown was poor again. He just doesn't seem like he could get into the game. But Andy, from any of the points there I just kind of mentioned, did you feel like at half time there were signs there we could get back into the game for the second half?
Well, you mentioned an awful lot of Serbian chances there, but like going back to the first point on Alan Brown, create a bit of pressure on the ball, and then Jamie McGrath, the first time we kind of drove forward and drove at the Serbian defence, albeit if the free kick came of it, it was still a chance. It was still our first opportunity of actually driving at the Serbian defence. So that was good to see. We probably didn't see enough of it over the next 15 or 20 minutes. There was, as I said there, you listed off a good few chances for the Serbian attackers there. But, you know, we were building up, but just I think you mentioned it there. Our end product was just a little bit. It just wasn't there. The final pass. McLean, in fairness, he put in a great delivery for Alameda, but he's just too far. He doesn't have that instinct to be in the right place at the right time just yet. He is getting there. He's still an awful lot of learning to do. But look, he's trying his heart out. Unfortunately, it was a free out. But you know, if he's probably a little bit more of a seasoned striker, he's standing where that ball ends up, and it's another good opportunity. So it's just all about learning and getting into the right sort of moments in the right times in the game and kind of capitalising on them. But again, we were relying on Bazunu and goal as well to kind of pull off a couple of saves when we needed them to do as well, you know.
Yeah, Lara, I'll get your opinion then, just from any of that type of stuff at half time. What were your feelings?
I was really enjoying the game, Paul. Strangely enough, I think the crowd being there and the noise and how much behind the team, it made the whole thing enjoyable. And I think, you know, I know we were under the cosh, but I didn't think the game was getting away from us, right? But I think people sort of lost their run themselves. I think this was always the show in Lansdowne Road or the Aviva. Like these teams, good teams that would, you know, in terms of ranking, that would have been a lot higher than us coming, and us, you know, our team being able to hold them out, being able to keep it to a close game. You know, that's always been the show, I think, in Lansdowne Road for a long time. Even from, you know, once we started doing it anyway, well, like that was a familiar script. So I was really enjoying it. In terms of what you were seeing, I thought the same thing. Even though they got a lot of chances, a lot of them were sort of from the edge of the box. They were very, very clever. They were bouncing balls around off each other. But the shots were eventually coming from the edge of the box from in front of us. Right? It wasn't that many times they actually got behind us. So I was sort of happy enough with that. And I was also happy at what you were saying about the amount of crosses that we were getting in, and especially James McLean. You know, because we spoke before the game about this. And, you know, love him or loathe him. And I saw Stephen Finn write about him being Marmite. You either hate him, or you love him or hate him. But I still think that other than set players, James McLean's crosses for a lot of the games have been our main source of danger to the opposition team. I think no matter what you get out of him, and I know he does have his bad games and all, no matter what you get out of him, you're always guaranteed a certain amount of crosses that will come into the box. That, like Andy said, if we have players there that are in the right place at the right time, we can take advantage of them. And that was the way I thought the game looked. You know, I thought we had a chance, and I thought that, like I said, the Serbians, they looked a really, really good team. I thought they looked a better team than Portugal in terms of individual players and in terms of how they were playing, but they weren't getting away from us.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of their players have played at a really high level. You got to look at our team as well. I think I said it to you on the phone, Lard, the other day. It's like a lot of our players are playing Championship, League One, and any of our higher level players aren't playing at their clubs. Like they're not playing Premier League football. You know, Duffy's probably the only regular in the Premier League at the moment. Obviously, Coleman just got injured, but he would have been as well. But them two, Doherty's not getting in at Spurs as well. So people need to remember that as well. Maybe there's a bit of a reality check there, because I think a lot of people are comparing a lot of our players to the Jack era and Mick's first spell, and they're comparing results to that as well a little bit. You know what I mean? Whereas I think more the Martin O'Neill tail end era, similar players, you know, similar level, I think. But we have more players playing Premier League than under the O'Neill era, as we know. I'll just move on to the second half. There was no subs for us, but I have here the 54th minute. McLean actually gets in another good ball, and this time it's to Alan Brown, but Alan Brown can't seem to take the ball down, and it goes out of play. I think maybe a bit more composure there, and maybe he's in. I don't think he probably would have scored or anything like that, but if he could take it down and maybe pick someone out, but it's easier said than done, I suppose, for sitting here saying that. 56th minute. Good play by Tadic out right hand side. George cuts it back to Mitrovic, and Bazunu makes a really good save with his feet. 57th minute, Brown goes off and Callum Robinson came on. Again, Brown for me, I think he was carrying a knock going into this game where he had COVID, one or the other. I know Robinson definitely did have COVID, and apparently that's why he didn't start, because he was still feeling the after effects of COVID. I've had it recently, so I can confirm that there is after effects of it, that just kind of fatigue you a little bit. But I thought he was lively when he came on. Were you surprised that Brown went off, Andy?
No, not really. Brown has been one of those players that I don't think he's really shown his full potential in an Ireland jersey just yet. He has flashes. He has half good games. I want a little bit more from him. I know he's a good player. I know, obviously, Stephen trusts him to put him into that role. But I just don't think he's really got to that full potential in a green jersey just yet. And, like, we're all willing him on. I don't think anybody's calling him a bad player or anything like that. He just, 58 minutes, it just didn't work out for him. He had bits of good play, as I mentioned earlier on the first half, like pressing high, creating a bit of trouble in the Serbian faces. But, I would just be expecting a little bit more from him on the ball, quality-wise. But, look, I think it will come. I think he's one of those players that, probably just needs a few more runs of games in the team. And I'm hoping, I'm praying that it comes good for him, because he's a good lad. He's a good trier. And he is good on the ball. Like, I think it will come from him. I'm just hoping I'm right.
Lar? Dad?
No, I wouldn't have been surprised, but I wouldn't have been surprised if a couple of others had been taken off either, because in terms of establishing some sort of hold in midfield, I don't think we ever achieved that during the game. It could have been. I think Young McGrath could have come off as well at the same time. I think we've spoken about Josh Cullen before, and I think he's a great young lad, but he struggled to get himself into the game. I think the other night as well. He actually looked tired after the previous games. Where I think people are starting to think of him as our main midfield creative player, and a bit more is expected of him. And he looked really, really tired to me the other night, so it could have been him as well. But it didn't come as any surprise when Alan Brown was taken off either.
Yeah,
I think the chance in the box where you were saying it came into him. This seems to me to be becoming a bit of a theme that. Maybe it's because of the pressure and all the talk about us not scoring goals and all, that when we get into the penalty area, people are, I don't think it's the first time that's happened to him. He's got a chance and he's tightened up when the chance has fallen to him. I think later on in the game, the same thing happened with Callum Robinson, that in and around the penalty area, we just seem to be tense and nervous. We don't seem to be able to get our shots away when we should get shots away. And of course, like you said, that was one of the things that you would have picked out from Alan Brown's performance the other night.
Yeah, I think he's more obviously he scored that header away in Serbia, and that was a brilliant header. I think he's maybe better coming onto the ball rather than the opposite way in which he received it. You know what I mean? I have here then in the 58-minute, Kostic has a brilliant bit of play down our left-hand side, and Doherty struggles to keep up with him. He whips in the ball then into Mitrovic, and Bazunu again makes a really good save. It's Mitrovic kind of stabs at it, goes out for a corner. He comes out and he claims the corner, takes the pressure off us again. I think he was absolutely amazing at that the whole game. Then the 65th minute, Cullen went off, as you said. He could have went off, but that's it. And McGrath went off, and Malumbi came on, and Darrell Horgan came on. I think Stephen at that stage was thinking we need to get more energy in there and maybe combat their midfield a bit more. Lara, I'll come to you on that, I suppose, because you were talking about the midfield just there.
Well, I think you're talking when you're talking about it, even after the substitutions with the two lads coming on. I actually, for the first time, I sort of thought to myself, I was saying to myself, we could do with a more experienced player coming in there now, right? And I thought the time would have been right then to bring Conor Hourihane in, who again, isn't. It wouldn't have been hugely consistent for us, but I just think that extra little bit of experience might have been needed at that time coming into the midfield.
All right. Andy, yourself just on the double sub?
Yeah, completely agree with Lara there. I would have liked to maybe see look, I know we're probably limited in our options at the moment, and I know Stephen is something different is giving people different opportunities and different players to coming on. But I would have liked maybe a little bit more of a seasoned head to come in there and just kind of maybe get a foot on the ball. But look, as we know with Jason and Harold, like they'll give us 100%. It's just foot on ball. I think we probably needed it at that point of the time, in the game.
Yeah. Well, they made a sub, a double sub as well. They took off Tosic and Vlahovic, and they brought on Radonjic and Luka Jovic. Radonjic was actually really good when he came on. But I have here just on the 73rd minute then, because that was in the 69th minute when they made their subs. So a counter-attack from us losing the ball on the edge of their box. I think it was Callum Robinson. Duffy does well to get back into the shape. Radonjic has a double shot. He has the first shot saved by Bazunu, and then the second was kind of blocked, kind of between Omar Bambadelia and Bazunu, and then claimed by Bazunu. I think that was the turning point in the game for us, because that's when the crowd let off a real roar. And I remember Bazunu, he throws the ball out to Doherty. He gets the ball up to Ida. Now, this isn't really a big thing in the game, but there's the fact that Ida gets on the ball. He nutmegs one of their defender and he kind of goes at them. And at that point, then the crowd really started to get behind the team. And I think in previous games, and I know, look, we've played in front of empty stadiums and stuff like that. I've been there, and it's so soul destroying being at these games with no atmosphere. And you can see that the players are crying out for that extra little push and that extra little bit of energy. And I think at that point, when our players were maybe looking a little bit tired, and Stephen had made those subs and probably was criticised previously for making subs too late in the game, he made these subs a little bit earlier, and it just did seem to give us that little bit of energy. Now, in saying that, I have here, the 74th minute, the attempts was 1-10. So they had 10 and we had 1. And then, so there wasn't much for the crowd to really get behind at that point. But the fact is that I think it was just, that was the turning point in the game for me, because I felt like then we just started to go up a little level in terms of our energy. Well, I know, Larry, you weren't at the game, but Andy, were you at the game?
No, unfortunately, no. I only caught the last maybe 15 minutes on TV, but I watched it again, and the one thing I have definitely noted is the impact of as you mentioned there, of the crowd. It's great first and foremost to have them back in Lansdowne, but I think from watching the post-match reaction from across different media channels, I think all bar none mentioned the roar of the crowd on the night, and it sounded a hell of a lot more than it was of 25,000. So all credit to everyone that was there. I think Liam Brady mentioned it on the RT panel after the game, was that they didn't really, and you just touched on it there, they didn't really have a hell of a lot to actually cheer on, but they got behind the team, and they get that little bit of, just it might be just 1%, 10%, whatever. Each player responds differently to a crowd roar, but it helped certainly at that point in time, and all credit has to go to the crowd, because it's very easy to go the other way. It's to sit there moaning and groaning on every misplaced pass or missed opportunity and start to criticise the lads. But in fairness to them, they got behind the team, and I think it's definitely evident, I can see from the reaction with the last 15-20 minutes that it helped.
Yeah, that came across, Paul, on the television. What you said there, that I actually noticed that what you're saying about that time. Just that ball that went up, and when Ida turned him, you could hear the surge from the crowd. It was fantastic,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to come to you and get your point on that, so I'm glad you came in there. Well, I think that was a change in momentum. I think they had a couple of chances after that, and I think we gifted them a counter attack from a corner. I think I'll come to that in a sec. But I have here just after that. So Mitrovic was played in. I think Doherty gets in there twice, and he defends well and clears the danger. I thought he was excellent throughout the whole game, and I know we haven't touched on him in terms of chances and stuff like that, but he really stood up and was counted in this game, and I felt like Hendrick was as well. A lot of people have been very, very critical of Hendrick, and he has been anonymous in a lot of games, but I thought throughout, especially the first half and carrying on to the second half, I felt as though he was getting tired. Obviously he hasn't been playing much football this season, but I think he was dropping in pockets, trying to pick up the ball, trying to make things happen, and I felt as though he actually between the Portugal game and the Serbia game, I think he really showed that he could be a key player under Stephen Kenny, and we haven't seen him play really well since probably 2016, or he hasn't had any real kind of stellar performances. Now, I'm not saying he was amazing, and I'm not saying he was like Tadic for them, but I'm just saying it was nice to see him maybe have an impact on the game and kind of just impose himself a little bit more than he probably had previously been. He went off for it, and Howard came on in the 77th minute, and Ida went off and Collins went on. But I'm just trying to see. There was one more attempt just before they went off. Milenkovic, Savic plays in there, player Radonjic in on the right, and Bazunu comes, misses the ball, and he's bailed out by James McLean. And that's another player who I thought, as the game grew on as well, I thought he really got into the game, because he was a worry for me defensively. And watching him in the first half, he was a real worry just defensively and stuff like that. He's a good cover in there for Enda Stevens, but I think you're going to get the best out of James McLean if he's further forward in a kind of wing forward position rather than a defence. He's just not naturally a defender. He's good, he gets stuck in and stuff like that, but he bailed out Bazunu in that sense. Andy, I'll come to you on any of the stuff I just mentioned there. Feel free to have your say.
Yeah, I think, Paul, you mentioned a couple of players there. I thought Jeff Hendrick was in the first, probably definitely in the first half, was one of his better performances in Ireland. Sure. I think, as you mentioned there, he kind of got a little bit leggy coming near the start of the 65th, 70th minute, which is probably the main reason why Stephen took him off. But his players like that, and as you mentioned there already, James McLean, like, they're starting to put in the performances that we would have expected from them, and we're hoping that all of these performances click together at once, and we have a really good performance as a team. But yeah, like, there's plenty of positives to take from that second half, that sort of mid section of second half. You know, we could have very easily gone 2 or 3 down. But obviously, as we've mentioned already, with Bazunu, with last ditch tackles, with blocks on, and creating opportunities and getting the crowd behind us, and really sort of creating that opportunity to go and get an equaliser. Because, to be fair, as I said, we could have laid down, we could have just accepted that, you know, these are a better side, they're going to create opportunities, and kind of sit back and just kind of, you know, defend our way through the last, say, half an hour or whatever in the game. But in fairness to the lads, they stuck with it, and they tried to create opportunities, which I think kind of was deserved in the end when the goal came, you know.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I'm going to come to you and just have your say on any of that stuff that we
again about the midfield, Paul. Like, I know people are saying this, that it was a great game, it was a hugely improved game by Jeff Hendrick. I'm not sure I saw that much, you know. I didn't quite see it as everyone else did. I thought, like I said already, I thought the 3 centre players in midfield, I thought they all could have done a little bit more now, to be honest. You know, bearing in mind that we were under the cosh, it hard, very, very hard game for them to play in. But like I said, Hendrick included, I thought the 3 of them could have done more.
Would you not give credit to the fact that they're coming up against really top level?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, because we're playing, like, again, this is not anything new in Lansdowne Road. We're playing against a good team. We're playing against one of the top continental teams. We're under pressure a lot. We're not on the ball a lot. So they're doing great work. Like, I don't think any player could be questioned in terms of their commitment and the work that those midfield players did in terms of filling in holes, blocking passes into the front, making tackles, making blocks. But I think to a man, they all could have done a bit more under the ball.
Yeah.
Sorry, just the Wi-Fi was going in and out there. I lost that last point. But I'm just going to move on to out here. Milenkovic, Savic has a header. It just went wide. A great free kick by Tadic. I think Malumbi makes the foul on that scenario, and he's actually suspended now for the next game, unfortunately. I think Alan Brown is out of the next game as well. So then in the 82nd minute, Tadic comes on, Maksimovic comes on, and then in the 83rd minute, we have our first corner of the game, and it's taken short. Now, people will argue that Conor Howard's maybe fouled there, but he takes a short corner, gives it to Taylor, goes back to Howard, and then it looks as though he probably is fouled. But anyway, Serbia get on the counter-attack, and we look so desperate to get back for this. The ball comes out. I think it goes to Kosic, and Bazunu makes a save again and bails us out in that scenario. And then I think from there, I have in the 84th minute, because that was the 83rd minute when we had the first corner. 84th minute, ball knocked short when all our players went up. But I will say in this case, because the ball, we had like a free kick in our half, and all Duffy, Egan, all our players went up, and we played it short. But then the ball came back to Bazunu. He gives it out wide right to Doherty. Does well, goes up the right hand side, gets a cross in, comes back out, goes out for a throw in the end. I think Omobamidele gives it to Robinson. He whips it in. It was a great ball, and defenders and goalkeepers hate those sort of balls that go into that area, and any sort of kick or flick, it can go in, and that's what happened. It went in off Milenkovic. I was watching it from the angle I was watching. It was kind of pretty much straight in front of me, but it actually looked like I thought it went in off Duffy's arse. And I was like, if Stephen Kenny ever needed a bit of luck going in off Duffy's arse, that was when you needed it. But I watched it back obviously earlier on. I see it coming off Milenkovic, but I think at sometimes, like, Stephen Kenny has had no luck with COVID, with everything else. A referee against Portugal, we've had no luck, I felt, in games that we probably could have, should have won. But again, it's coulda, woulda, shoulda type stuff. He gets the slice of luck that we've been crying out for. The goal goes in from, you would say, maybe a typical kind of Irish bit of play. I know John Walters had said that too. I know he might have been critical, but he did say it was a kind of typical Irish bit of play. Get the ball into the box and try and get put pressure in on the defenders, and something might happen. And that's exactly what happened. But when the goal went in, Andy, how were you feeling at that point? And did you feel that the luck was justified?
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned there, like, Stephen probably has had every excuse or every bit of bad luck thrown at him in his tenure as Irish manager. So, you know, he's celebrated the goal like he needed it. You know, that was a huge slice of luck, and as you mentioned there already, it is a bit ironic that it came from, you know, lumping it into the box, and kind of Duffy and Egan are up there making a nuisance of themselves. You know, so for all the sort of the style and build up play that we're looking to create these beautiful goals, it does go back to an old school approach of just launching it back into the box. And look, sometimes there's a time and place for that, and I think that certainly was the opportunity to do that. Just sort of, I wouldn't make any apologies for doing that with 5 or 10 minutes to go, just pumping it into the box and just creating. Because in fairness, anytime we do play and anytime we are looking for a goal, it does seem to be our biggest threat of a goal when we make our physicality count a little bit more in the box, in the opposition box, you know. Yeah,
man, it was great to see the crowd celebrations as well. You were watching on the telly.
Yeah, it was great. Like, everyone, like, I don't think anyone could deny the team, you know, that we deserve to get something out of the game. Like, don't forget, right from the back, like, Bazuna's goalkeeping, and that's part of the game. We did that well. Like, the blocks that we got in, we did that well. Like, you know, the work rate and the closing down in midfield, we did all that well. So we deserve something out of the game, I thought, because of that, you know. But, like, we're starting the bigger debate now, I think, in terms of how we attack. Like, you know, people are talking about, you know, that it was old school, and it was all. People have very, very short memories, because we got beaten last week or a week ago by Portugal doing the exact same thing. Portugal, for the last 20 minutes, I think, in that game, just put cross after cross after cross in the box. And the difference was they had Ronaldo on the end of two of them. Yeah, we seem to be criticised for doing that, but I haven't heard one commentator make that point. The irony of the fact that Portugal beat us by putting cross in the box. And again, it opens up the bigger picture. Do we want to look nice, or do we want to look dangerous? Right? I thought we looked dangerous when, like you said, Andy, it was like the old way that Ireland used to play, getting the ball into the other team's half and putting pressure on the other team. You know, being in the other team's half rather than you know, building up slowly through the lines, as they say now. When we've done that, we haven't looked too effective. Every now and again it's happened, but we haven't done it in any consistent way. But I thought for those last 15 minutes, I thought we looked dangerous. And this is what I'm saying. Do we want to look nice or do we want to look dangerous? And I know we had this debate again, about McLean's crosses. I think if Cristiano Ronaldo was in our team on the end of those McLean crosses, I think we would be winning these games by 2 or 3 goals.
Maybe so, but we know that we are naturally struggling for that player to come in and replace Robbie, and we have been for a long, long time, as we all know. But I think you're right. I think Eden maybe needs to look at Calvert-Lewin as someone who maybe goes and does a lot around the box rather than staying in between the sticks. And since Calvert-Lewin's done that, he's gone up in levels, and that's where he's told to just stay in between the posts and get on the end of crosses. And maybe Eden needs to do that.
I would have said that, Paul, once we were going on in terms of the shape of the team. He seems to be out wide too much. He seems when the wide men get on the ball, he seems to be running diagonally towards the corners all the time. And obviously that's taking our player out of the middle. And to be honest, as well, I think if few times he's actually going out and he's crowding out the wide players. He's stopping them actually getting down the line by coming out wide all the time. He's blocking up the play rather than helping. Now, again, no one can question his work rate, but I think you're dead right. He needs to be more central. But I would also question, and I know this isn't going to be a popular opinion, but I'd also question his finishing in terms of the ball in the air. For a big type of centre forward that he is, he's had some chances where crosses have come across, and it's not as if he's got them on target and they've been saved. He's had chances, and it seems to be all the headed chances that he gets, he's not taking advantage of, But you could say the same thing about Shane Duffy. Even though he does get the goals, he misses an awful lot. We see him in the penalty area. We see him to be just. No, I can't put my finger on it.
Fall to pieces, yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. When the ball comes into the penalty area, we just don't seem to be right for some reason. Everyone seems to tighten up. No one seems to have the composure. Obviously we don't have a Robbie Keane, but in the group we just don't seem to have the composure to put the stuff into the ball, to put the ball into the goal.
Yeah, no, we would agree with all of that. I'm just looking here. Just after we scored the goal, Goodell has a free kick, and it's the crossbar. That was the one that the long one that Bazunu said. It's going out wide and it hits the crossbar. And the 88th minute, that was a bit nervy. Then, as you said there about Duffy in the box, he has a really good chance towards the 91st minute. Robinson gets a brilliant ball in with his left foot on the left side. Duffy comes in, and it was kind of between himself and Egan, and he heads it just over. And then in the 92nd minute, he must have seen the headlines in the paper the next day. Andrew Omobamidele finds himself in the opposition's half in the 92nd minute and unleashes an absolute thunderbolt, and is brilliantly saved by the goalkeeper. I think everybody in the stadium, I think the roof would have fell off the stadium if that had went in. It would have been amazing. The 19-year-old came in like Bazunu, and again, we spoke about people's age as well as that, and we'll come to it. Ida is only 20 as well, so there's lots of time for him to improve. We'll just want it to happen sooner rather than later. But I just thought it was brilliant to see someone like Omobamidele, who grew throughout the whole game, got better and better as time went on. I remember just before he actually got that shot off, he has this lovely little turn on near the halfway line, skins one of their players, gives the ball up to, I think it's Robinson, and just kind of got us going. And I felt as though he could be someone who we can rely on now to come in. He's played against two really big teams. He shouldn't have anything to fear now. He's played against Portugal, he's played against Serbia. I think he's one that we can rely on in the future, and hopefully he'll get game time with Norwich off the back of this, and same with probably Adam Ida. But when that shot gets saved, I think that was the last real key moment of the game. So I suppose full-time 1-1. Andy, were you thinking that was a good result? And if you want to touch on the Omobamidele chance or any of the other chances toward the end of the game, feel free.
Yeah, like everyone in the stadium, everyone in the country was just willing it in, weren't they? Unfortunately, the keeper just read it beautiful. The problem with striking from that sort of distance is the keeper does get a good line of sight of it, and unfortunately, it just wasn't today. But in fairness to him, his performances have been brilliant. He's really taken to senior football, both with Norwich and obviously with Ireland, and I think he's definitely one for the future. In terms of the final result, I do think it's a really good result. Like the Serbians are a good side. Like I think you've mentioned a few there, but like you've got players playing for Fulham, Fiorentina, Lazio, Ajax, Real Madrid, and to probably name a few more as well. So like I think all things started being equal. It was a very good result, a good point. Obviously, look, there's things to work on. There's really a lot of positives to take from the game. Um, it was great to have the crowd back, and obviously it was a really good, strong finish from the team as well. So, look, I think I'm sort of caught in between, trying to get to it, so it's and being a negative Nelly as well about it. It's somewhere in between. It was a really, really good, strong result, but I do think sort of the performance probably should have been a little bit better quality on the ball in terms of, creating attacking opportunities and possession. But overall, if you were to ask, is it a good result? I think a 1-1 draw against the Serbians is a decent result.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. Lara, yourself?
Just to go back to what you were saying about Andrew, I'll just call him Andrew because I'm not going to do a Jack Charlton.
Just call him Big Andy.
Big Andy, yeah, Big Andy. What we were saying, just a little point about the experience. What we were saying about the experience. When Stephen brought him on in the previous game, I thought, oh no, what is he doing putting a young fella in like that? But it just shows you how much I know, because he was absolutely fantastic. He was. Right, but we're going to see things through our own prism, and I'm looking at the value of experience. When he went in the other night, he's in beside two experienced centre backs. He's playing beside them. He's not in beside another young fella, and I think that's important in terms of the overall building of the team. Right, I think that's really, really important that he's not in with another fella, and two fellas aren't beside each other there, looking to hold down one area of the field. I think that was important. But in terms of the shot and the confidence, it was absolutely fantastic to see something like that happening, So once we get to the end of the game, it's a fantastic result. I don't know how anyone can say it's anything other than a fantastic result, right? Because of the team that we have now, the stage of team building that we're at the moment, plus the fact, and again, this is open to opinion, but in my opinion, over what we've seen over the last week, Serbia, to me, are the best team in the group. Right? I thought, other than, if Ronaldo hadn't come up and scored those 2 goals, I'm sure people in Portugal and in general would have been really, really critical of that Portuguese team. I thought they were only a shadow of what they were before. I think Serbia, on what we've seen, are the best team in the group. So, to me, that was a fantastic result. And it was.
What I would say is that Portugal are better individuals, but as a team, Serbia are definitely a better team.
Definitely looked a better team, right? And I think I don't know how anyone can be less than happy with that. And it's funny, we spoke about the TV, and I looked at it on the TV, and I thought it wasn't as good as the lads on RTE were making it out to be, right? And it wasn't as bad as the lads on TV3 were making it out to be. I think the reality was in channel 2.5, like in between the two. There was a lot of things that we can take hard from, but I don't think Stephen Kenny would be in any way, under any illusions that there was a huge amount to improve on as well. But that's where we're at. We're at the stage of building a new team, and there's no new team that doesn't need, to improve in every. I would imagine, other than the goalkeeper now, which is absolutely a revelation, right? That's something I don't think. Well, maybe the people who knew him expected, but I think we have a fantastic goalkeeper now for a long time, and plus we have Kelleher as well. But other than that, I think I don't think anyone is under any illusions that there has to be a huge amount of improvement done. But like I said, I think that was a great result for us.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said there. I'm just going to go in. So over the window, just on the game, we finished strong, but we couldn't get the winner, as you spoke mentioned. I think that's where we're at there. We don't score enough goals in games. It's always one goal in every game, and we just can't seem to get the second, which just seemed to be the case throughout the 3 games as well. I mean, we scored 3, conceded 4, we lost 1 and drew 2. So that's kind of where we're at. I suppose where we kind of finish on is the positives and negatives from this little window, and where we are in terms of under Stephen Kenny and kind of how you stand with him. I suppose I'll start with my positives. The positives for me were obviously Bazunu really upping his game and showing he can play at the highest levels, and he can be counted on and relied on for big games. Andrew Omobamidele can come in as well, and I'm absolutely positive that Nathan Collins, if he would have been called upon, would have been able to come in there and play too. So I think the fact that we actually got to see Duffy and Egan play together, because for whatever reason Egan always seems to get injured on international duty with us, and it was the first time he actually got to play with Duffy, and they look so comfortable together. Well, I know he played in Bulgaria, and that game was a bit off because it was in pre-season kind of mode, but I thought when they're playing for their clubs and they're playing consistently, and Duffy's obviously back to his best now, I think that they are so assured and they help out the other players. But as you said, it wasn't like Omobamidele was in there on his own. On his right, he had Doherty. On his left, he had Duffy. And as well as that, you look at Bazunu behind him is his mate as well. They came up through the years. They played against each other and they're good friends. So these types of things are only going to help us for the future. I think Adam Ida is a positive in terms of, I think the more experience he gets, I think it's a given that he will be better. I think his goal scoring now needs to be the name. We know that we can rely on him to hold the ball up and do that horrible, lonely striker role, but we do need him to get the odd goal, or maybe be in the box and get that scrappy goal that maybe a Kevin Doyle used to get. You know, who wasn't no majorly prolific, but he did get important goals for us, and he did get on the score sheet, and he was never really a hugely successful Premier League type striker, you know. So I think, or Shane Long even. So I think, looking at him, I still think Aaron Connolly can be big for us, but I think his composure needs to be a thing that he needs to really improve on. So I think there's positives. The negatives are there again, not winning games, not game management at times as well. It can be questioned. I think he done well with the subs against Serbia, whereas in previous games I think the subs he didn't do so well, and he kind of left them really late in the game. But I think the subs that he made against Serbia really helped us. Robinson sets the goal up, and I just felt like we went for them. But I suppose, Andy, I'll come to you. Positives, negatives. What were the biggest things that stood out to you over the 3 games?
For me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Yeah. I suppose the positives overall is more game time into the late of the young lads gaining invaluable experience. That will be huge for the next campaign. Look, it is what it is now. I was a bit critical of the overall campaign in terms of like points accumulated, but bigger picture is these lads are gaining huge experience against top quality opposition. In fairness to them, like, you know, as you mentioned already, the Portuguese side, the Luxembourg side, or Azerbaijan are no mugs either, although probably should have won that game. And then obviously Serbia, huge talent. So, you know, there are positives to take from that. I suppose the resilience in the squad as well to, you know, look, I know it's a 96th or 7-minute goal or whatever it was Ronaldo scored, but it's one defeat in, is it six or seven now? So, you know, it's not all doom and gloom, although I can be critical of not picking up those results. Then turning on to the negatives is we just have to turn those draws into wins, and it doesn't have to be every game. It can be, you know, we just need to see progress. And the biggest thing for me, I think Lara mentioned it very early on in the analysis, was when we're on the ball, just a little bit more quality on it. And look, I think you countered, Paul, with saying, like, obviously give credit to the opposition because they're high quality. But I just think when we have the opportunity to create an attacking opportunity, we just need to be a little bit better on the ball. And
do you mean like moving the ball quicker as well, maybe?
Yeah, just keep the possession, building it up, and sometimes, resorting to, maybe if it is the last 10, 15 minutes, having to go a little bit more direct, and just mixing up, keeping the opposition on their toes, and creating a way of a scoring opportunity. Now, the flip side of it is we don't have that Robbie Keane. I don't think we'll ever see the likes of Robbie Keane again. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong. I hope we do. But we just have to kind of create opportunities, create chances whereby, it's a midfield runner, whether it's, as you mentioned earlier on, it goes in off someone's backside. We just need that little bit of luck. But I don't think we're really creating enough opportunities to convert into goal scoring opportunities at the moment. Last on Tuesday, did we create maybe two, maybe three chances? At that level, you have to be very clinical to putting those opportunities away. Fortunately for us, we got a bit of luck and we got one, but against opposition that, I suppose, if you want to say, we'd be expected to beat, we have to be putting those opportunities away.
Yeah, Lara, I'll come to you, and then I'm going to go into just Stephen Kenny after that.
I think the positive, like I said, I think the other night was a great result, and I think the positives are we know we can get results now. The group, as they say nowadays, the group, but the players know, the coaches know, everyone around the team knows that they can get results. Right? It's about getting some consistency. Right? We can do it. Over 90 minutes in Portugal, we could have had a result. So we know the results. We can get the results. I think that's a huge thing to take away from the break. Right now, the negative side to me, really, and again, this is the old thing that gets thrown at coaches about coaches being negative. The biggest negative for me in terms of the three games was the nature of the goals that we gave away. Right, the way that we gave those goals away, right, all very, very easily stopped goals, especially the two crosses in the Portugal game. Lack of pressure on the player with the ball, right? A little bit lack of cover when McLean was beaten. These things between Coleman and Cullen for the Azerbaijan goal, and then giving a goal away from the corner. I think Stephen is a really, really intelligent coach, and I think he'll look at this and he'll see that this is important. And what's important is that we improve on those things. If you look at things that way, if you look at it from that point of view, if we had have done those little small things better, we would have got better results. We would have had a half decent points haul out of this break. So I think the little things like that are where we're falling down. In terms of the big picture and trying to play, like, we definitely are playing more football now. I don't think anyone can say that we're not. In terms of the way the team was playing compared to the way the team is playing now, we're certainly using the ball. My fear is that we've gone a little bit too far the other way, that we're not playing like the Irish team now, that we're trying to play like the Spanish team, and we're not Spaniards. I think the difference between this team, if this team is to go forward quicker, right, and this team is to put more pressure on the opposition, it wouldn't be like the old days where I'm not talking about putting high balls in on top of this. I'm talking about players looking to play forward quicker, looking to feed the forwards in earlier, looking to get the wide players a little bit more aggressive and a little bit higher up the field. But still, the basic principle is the same. We have to play like Ireland. We have to put that extra little bit of pressure. We have to try and play as much as we can, bearing in mind the level of opposition we're playing against. But we've got to try and play as much in the opposition's half as we can. Right. So rather than, if we get into the opposition's half more and we're playing more and we're attacking more, I think we'll see some 1-2s. I think we'll see some individuals creating goals in a different way than we have been doing. But again, like I said earlier, I don't think there's any harm in crosses going in, someone getting their head on them, and instead of heading them over the bar, sticking them in the goal. I don't see any problem with that, I think that's the way that we need to go. And like I said, I think Stephen will look at the way the games have gone, and he look. I'm not saying he'll think the same way as me, but I think he'll probably draw some of the same conclusions from the analysis of the week that we've just had.
Yeah, I suppose that kind of brings us to our last point. I mean, again, we haven't won any games in the group, and we have played the likes of Azerbaijan and Luxembourg, and obviously we lost to Luxembourg, and maybe we just couldn't get that second goal again against Azerbaijan, and that seems to be our biggest struggles. When we get one, we just can't seem to add another. But if the campaign runs out like that and he hasn't got a win, it's kind of hard to stick up for him after that. And like, I want Stephen to stay in the job, and I hope if we can get some results before the end of the campaign, then he is get kept on, because I think what he's done in terms of bringing those players in, and I've actually enjoyed watching us a lot under Stephen. I know other people, maybe it's been different at home, but I've actually watched and seen, because I was lucky enough to be able to work at the games in the Aviva, to see what you can kind of see. There was stuff happening, but I think maybe with a crowd there, maybe that would have given us that little extra bit of energy. I mean, it started off that we couldn't score goals. Now we are scoring goals. Now it's just we can't score the second goal. And then it became we couldn't win games. That's the next thing now. We need to win basically a competitive game. And people are saying, oh, well, you can't defend him. Look at his record, 1 win in 17 or something like that. Which it is an abysmal record, but people just look at the result rather than, how those games have panned out, and, COVID and everything else. It's just been a bit of a hectic time over the last while. But I think if you're looking at Stephen and he doesn't get a win out of this campaign, which I hope he does, but if he doesn't, then it's kind of hard to say, well, you should give him a contract. Even though a lot of those under 21 players he's brought in, and they have looked excellent when he's brought them in. They have not looked out of place one bit. But that would be my only qualm with that, is if he doesn't win a game, then it is results based. I get that, and he is trying to develop players, but he does need to win games, and that would be my biggest thing. Andy, I'll come to you, and then I'll come to you after that, and we'll wrap it up then.
Yeah, well, I sort of flip up, to be honest with you, Paul, with Kenny in, Kenny out, over the recent weeks. And the reason being is exactly what you just mentioned there. Is I understand the big picture. I understand the mismanagement of the association over 20, 30 years, probably even more, you could argue. I understand all of that. But at the same time, if he goes 20 games with only 1 win over an Andorra, I would say that has to be questioned. I'm not saying that, to sack him. I'm not saying that, there's somebody else better out there. He's a very knowledgeable, he's a very talented manager. There's no sort of question that. And there's no questioning his intention of what we're trying to do as a country going forward. But at the same time, we do need to start turning it into results. And how long is too long to give him? And if we continue this run of form, football is very, it's a funny old game. It's confidence based, it's results based. If we go into a European campaign, qualifier campaign next year without a victory in a competitive game, does that seep into the squad? I don't know. The squad have to answer that in terms of the performances. But I don't believe that he should be exempt of criticism based on everything else going on in the background. It would be my only situation on the thing. I think it maybe, I sent out a tweet, maybe a frustration after the Portugal game, saying give him 2 more games. It was probably a little bit rash, a little bit harsh. I think we see him out to the end of this World Cup campaign. See if we can identify that if the association is approving and if they are happy with him, then we can give him an bash at the European. But I don't think he should be completely exempt of criticism either. It would be my take on it.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Again, results bring criticism. I think Jonathan Walters or someone had said it, that the more, criticism comes based on results. When you're winning, you're the best thing in the world. When you're losing, you're not. So that's the way it is. Lar, have your say, mate.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways I'd look at this, Paul. Right? It doesn't, without being smart now, it doesn't really matter what we think, right? Because I wonder what Stephen's brief is in terms from the FAI. Is he going to be given time to develop? Is this what the FAI want from Stephen Kenny? Now, the press conference before the match the other day might suggest that is the situation. When he said, look, we're not building for, we didn't expect to do well in this tournament, we're building for the next tournament. Now, I don't know, is that coming from the FAI? Are the FAI happy enough with that approach? We don't know this. So they may or may not be. I think that the example that has been quoted, it was quoted a little while ago, and I don't hear anyone saying it lately, was the Michael O'Neill scenario, where I think Michael O'Neill didn't get a win in his first 13 games, but went on to do an absolutely fabulous job. Right? So, you know, I don't, look, you know where I stand. I'm 1000% behind Stephen Kenny to do the job. I think, you know, anyone objectively looking at it, you cannot but say the look that he's had has been unbelievable, right? And coming down and again,
unbelievably
bad.
I
know, unbelievably bad, yeah, right. And as well as that, coming down to individual things that we spoke about earlier, it's not really like when we started off. I think the first game, I can't remember. You know, Paul, the first game, we played really
Slovakia.
Really well. Sorry.
Slovakia, the playoff game. Yeah.
Right.
Was it Bulgaria then?
I think it was the Bulgaria
Duffy
game.
Header, yeah.
It wasn't like we played really, really well. Everyone was delighted the way we played. Was it Stephen Kenny's fault that Conor Hourihane missed from 4 yards out? Right.
Oh, that was Slovakia, yeah.
It's the Slovakia game, right? And I think in the next game was the Finland game where Darren Randolph threw the ball out to their centre forward. Like, was that Stephen Kenny's fault? Right, you know, the whole cult of the manager thing now, you've got to look at the players and bring it up to date. Like, was it Stephen Kenny's fault that Matt Hardy didn't get close enough to stop that cross coming in? Was it Stephen Kenny's fault that James McLean got turned when he shouldn't have been turned on the end line? Right? You know, these things, I think all of these things have to be taken into consideration. Right? You cannot just say, with any sort of common sense, I don't think you can just say, well, if he doesn't get the results, he has to go. Just as you know, and I know it very rarely happens in football, but it does happen in football, that there have been instances where managers have got results and have still been sacked. So I don't think you can, without taking everything into account and looking at the whole picture in terms of the FAI, in terms of what has happened on the pitch, in terms of what has happened off the pitch with the COVID and that, I think all of these things have to be taken into consideration. And like, I think he has to be given a chance for the next, in terms of where we're going and what he said, what his stated aim is. And if he's coming out and saying that this is his aim, well, then I have to maybe think that that's what the FAI, that's the brief that the FAI have given him. And I think that he should be in place for the next tournament.
What'd you say, Andy?
It certainly sounds that way. It sounds he's been fairly what's the word, shy or reserved in his post-match interviews and his conferences. But over the weekend, it sounded like he kind of got a vote of confidence. Now, whether that's a dreaded vote of confidence, we've seen that backfire on managers in the past. But it certainly seems like that the association have come out and said, listen, you've got the Euros regardless of what happens in the next 4 games. He seemed to have that little bit of confidence in that conference on, was it Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was. And he just seemed to be kind of fighting and really backing his team and backing himself. So I think he's been given that vote of confidence from the association.
And at the end of the day, that is the key factor. That is the key factor. Now, the association will probably be swayed by the public, right? But I think after the other night, it looked like there seems to be a groundswell of support for Stephen Kenny. That's what it seemed like after the other night. Now, look, that we know that can change. That can change in the course of a minute, you know.
Yeah, well, that would be my point, is that, yeah, it was great to see all the banners in Kenny we trust and everything like that. And again, I want Stephen Kenny to do well. I really do. I like him. He's a nice man. He has, you know, a good personality about him, and he seems like a really good guy. And I know you know him personally, Lara, as well. But I think if we are to go and not pick up a result against Azerbaijan, or if we lose again to Luxembourg, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be turning the other way. Like Andy mentioned after the Portugal game, 2 games to go. Fans are fickle and things can change just like that. And if you said the public have a say on it, that'd be my only worry.
Again, it depends on how the games actually go, Paul.
Yeah, I know it's hypothetical. I hope we win, obviously.
You know, you can't... You just don't know what's going to happen. You know, like what if we play really, really well in one of those games and miss a load of chances, and the referee gives a dodgy penalty and we lose 1-0?
It's happened to us a few times.
It's like that's a result. This is why you can't just go on results. You have to take everything into account. You know.
I get that, but.
Over 20 games, you would have expected a little bit more of winning outcome, I suppose, is the law of averages. So I understand he has an awful lot. But look, he has got an awful lot of leeway with every excuse, with every sort of bit of bad luck. I think barring maybe an absolute thrashing in the next 2 games, I think he probably has the next 3 games. I think he probably has the European qualifiers to look forward to, you know.
I think as well.
Sorry, go on.
I think as well, Paul. I think there's a real question mark over the players. Can the players carry the momentum? Can the players learn the lessons from these games? Now, if the players learn the lessons from these games and carry the momentum from the other night in, I think we certainly the Azerbaijan and Luxembourg game, we can win those games.
Yeah, well, I hope we can. I hope we can, and I hope we do. I think the players owe it to themselves to get those results against those teams, and I think that, please God, that they put the shift in to try and do that. And look, who knows what can happen between now and then. The thing about international football is you never actually know who's going to be available, who's in form, who's not in form, and that's another thing to take in. It's not like it's a club team where you can go in one week and identify, as you said, Lara, like this is the issues in which we conceded, and now we're going to work on stopping that. And then next week they're stopped. This is like in a month's time you'll get a half a day to do this and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to find excuses for them or anything like that, but I am just saying people sometimes look at it almost like a club type thing where it's as if they can work so much on these things. They literally brought in, some of them are brought in on the Sunday. They don't train on the Monday because they're match day +1 or whatever it's called. So they don't do that. They just sit and they watch. And then you have the other players kind of just coming in and taking part or whatever. You have players that might not have played. A lot of players who maybe didn't play before this international might take momentum into their clubs, and that could be beneficial for us in the next few games. Again, I'm not sitting here going, oh, what if we don't... I'm hoping that we can go out and beat these teams and put in a real good performance against Portugal as well. I think that one's at home as well. So, look, I think we owe Portugal after that game. You know, the referee did not help us in that game. Serbia, we rode our luck. For once, we got a bit of luck. Azerbaijan, we just couldn't seem to get that second goal. Is that a lack of quality? I don't know. I didn't really get to see the second half because it was my brother's wedding, but I know, Lara, you touched on it. Like, we were getting balls to the box. Nobody was getting on the end of it. Or if they were, they just weren't doing much. Callum Robinson snatching at chances and stuff like that. I think he needs to improve for Ireland as well. But yeah, I think that's really it in terms of the final word. We spoke at length about it. We're just going to go around in circles, just talking about can we get results and stuff like that. I'm stuttering now. That will play out. Time will tell. So we'll be sure to have all the build up for the next few games and stuff like that as well. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Where do you feel we are in terms of a nation? Where do you think you are in terms of Stephen Kenny? What did you think about the result against Serbia? Huge thanks to Andy McNulty and a huge thanks to Lara as well. And Lara, before we head off, where can people purchase your book, Let the Players Play?
It's thanks for that, Paul. It's on a webpage that I have. It's bigpicturecoachingireland.com. The second book is on the way too. We're working away on the second book. It shouldn't be too long before that's out.
Good man. I know there's a lot of coaches that have been getting your book, and a lot of the ones I know around the area and stuff like that as well. So it's doing really well at the moment. So make sure if you're a coach,
there's over 400 copies sold now at this stage, Paul. I'm absolutely delighted with it, I have to say.
I'll buy one later on.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy's a good lad. Okay, well, guys, everyone joined us getting their comments in. We just didn't have enough time, and we're an hour 15 just talking about the game itself, so we don't want to keep anybody awake, and the lads have work to do and stuff like that. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Paul.